Taking a walk.
A lot of times stuff that I write, then after I'll just go, I can't sell this. So I just can't. And then I know it's not the right time to do it, or it's not right at all.
Welcome to another episode of Taking a Walk, where we're joined today by Jeffrey and Stephen McDonald, the dynamic brother duo behind the influential rock band Red Kross. These punk rock pioneers are here to chat about their new documentary, Born Innocent, the Red Kross story, which is making waves in the music documentary scene. From their early days as teenage punks opening for Black Flag to becoming influential figures in the grunge and power pop movements, Red Kross has maintained a unique position in rock history for over 4 decades. Join us as we take a stroll with Jeffrey and Stephen McDonald, exploring the highs, lows, and everything in between of their remarkable career, all captured in their new documentary, Born Innocent, the Red Kross story. Coming up now on Taking a Walk with Buzz Knight.
Well, welcome you to Matinee Idols, to the Taking a Walk podcast. Thanks for being on.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So if you could, since it's called Taking a Walk, if you could take a walk with any celebrity or musician, dead or alive, who would it be?
Ooh. They're actually taking a walk, and I'm trying to think of where I would want to walk first. It might be kind of fun to walk with Bach down Wilshire Boulevard.
With who? Wilshire?
Walk with Bach.
Bach, the composer?
Yes.
Okay, J.C. Bach. There's a lot of them, I think.
Johann Sebastian Bach.
Okay, yeah.
And walk down from Koreatown to Santa Monica would be fun. It would be really fun.
Walk with Bach.
Yeah, imagine just how tripped out he would be by all the latest inventions of the 21st century.
Uh-huh. I'm sure that's what Buzz was searching for.
I thought you meant Sebastian Bach, by the way. So
yeah.
That might be fun too, because Sebastian Bach is a huge, deep cut Kiss fan. So there is a language that we do speak in common.
So you would like to take a walk with Johann Sebastian Bach and Sebastian Bach on Wilshire.
On Wilshire from Koreatown to Santa Monica.
Have you done that walk yet? I know you're planning on doing that walk.
That's the next walk I'm actually planning on doing with you, actually.
Yeah, I'm down. And just for people that don't live in Los Angeles, that's like a 5-mile walk or something.
12-mile.
12-mile walk. So you do both ways, or what would happen? So
you go from Vermont to all the way to the beach.
How are you getting to Vermont? Are you dropping your car at the?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so that's probably a little bit more than you bargained for, Buzz. But Jeff wants to take a 12-mile walk. Are you okay with that?
Totally. I could tell I'm going to be in tears throughout this, which I love. I love the documentary, guys. Born Innocent is so wonderful. Tell me how it came together, the whole project, okay?
Well, there was someone, I wish I could remember his name, but there was a director who started it.
Eric something.
Eric, yeah. But the cinematographer stayed the same, Steve Appleford. Steve Appleford is technically the person who worked on the film the longest. And that was 10 years ago. And then about 8 years ago, or a little bit more than that, and that kind of fizzled because the director realized this is a complicated story. And I don't know if I think he just was like, this is too much for me to take on, or maybe something happened in his life. I'm not sure. But we stopped hearing from him. And then about 8 years ago, Andrew Reich reached out to me through mutual friends, and he very earnestly asked me. And I was impressed because he was the showrunner at Friends for 8 years, the hit TV sitcom. And I was surprised that he was interested in our little underground rock band. But he, as it turned out, had a deep love the world that we came from. And although you would think he's only aligned with mainstream things, he's actually very obsessive about a lot of underground culture.
He's very into hardcore punk, which I only recently discovered.
Right, because Jeff's daughter's in a hardcore band.
Well, only recently discovered. Come on.
Yes, I mean we
Like the
were
later, like
we
other
were
phases of
we
hardcore.
were we were adjacent to the birth of hardcore, but I ignored it for 40 years.
He was trying to pretend it wasn't happening.
But yeah,
And but your parents were supportive and still are supportive to this day. How did that
yeah.
happen?
How did that happen?
Yeah.
Well, we can't take credit for that. That's just naturally what they brought to the table, their support.
I think they found it interesting because we were the only kids, the only teenagers who were even trying to play in a band, much less a rock band or a punk rock band. We were very unique in that sense.
But do you mean like amongst our family, or do you mean like on our
No,
block?
I'm saying in our whole neighborhood. There were no
In our
teenage
neighborhood.
bands. There were no anything. So we were doing something interesting. And
There was Kevin Newman had a
he
band.
didn't have a band. He couldn't get it together to have a band.
Well, he had like a cover band. I remember hearing his.
No. That was like this friend of mine. The only other person I knew when we were in junior high school, he had an electric guitar, and we put together like a fake band to play the talent show. And I said I would sing. I'd never sang before, but he was going to do "Snakeskin Cowboy" by Ted Nugent. And once I looked at the lyrics, they were so stupid. I just reneged. I said I can't do this.
Oh,
And I was in like seventh grade.
Yeah, at 12 or 13, Jeff took a pass. And it's funny because at the time I probably thought he chickened out, but now I think I believe him that he really just thought the lyrics were too stupid.
Well, I just thought I can't sell this. I can't sell this song
at all.
I really felt that.
Cowboy.
I didn't use that term then, but that's the feeling I got ever since now. Like when there's something that comes across that, like a lot of times stuff that I write that after I'll just go, I can't sell this. So yeah, I just can't. And then I know it's not the right time to do it, or it's not right at all.
What are the lyrics to Snakeskin Cowboy? I know there's "Who the Hell You Think You Are." I know that.
You read my mind.
It's just a dumb song. It's just there's nothing offensive about it.
I'm gonna look them up right now.
Dumb.
I'm in front of my computer. I'm gonna look up Snakeskin Cowboy lyrics.
Maybe he was like, I think it was about Ted Nugent giving some shade to some dude who was peacocking around, someone within their vicinity.
Okay, here we go. Ooh, Snakeskin Cowboys. Oh, it's Cowboys.
Okay.
Who the hell you think you are? You're dancing around with your high-heeled boots. Don't think that should get you far. Just hanging around with your fancy pants on. Ain't got nothing on me. Think you got it right here on the stage? Stick around, boys. Maybe I can set you free.
Okay, I know exactly what that song is probably about. That song was about Ted Nugent's bitterness for the explosion of popularity of Grand Funk Railroad.
Oh, so you think it's a Mark Farner disc?
Yeah, Mark Farner, they kind of came from the same scene, and then Mark Farner exploded.
Yeah,
you're high-heeled boots
with your best pants on. That sounds like Mark Farner.
But I think I could probably relate to that song now, though.
Yeah, give me a break. Why are you so judgmental?
Because the song was very judgmental.
Now I'm going back to my old stance. You just chickened out.
No way.
See,
I want to see you sing that song. The next Red Cross performance, Stephen will be performing his rendition of Snakeskin Cowboy.
And I'm going to sell the hell out of it.
I can't wait. Oh my God. Now, you guys have had an obsession with Grand Funk Railroad going back to the Spirit of 76. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, we liked Grand Funk Railroad, but we we discovered their first two kind of acid rock albums. The Spirit of 76 Grand Funk was more the 70s version, and that was, I would have to hand that over to the writer-director, Lucas Reiner. He was the one who was obsessed with them. Because we didn't know their name. We didn't know Don Brewer, or what's the other guy's name?
Mark Farner.
We knew Mark Farner, Don something.
Yeah, Don Brewer. That sounds right.
He's the drum. Yeah. Like there's an actual line where they name check all three members of the original band.
Yeah, we're like Don Brewer, Mark Farner, which I have Mark Farner hair still.
And something Satchel. Is it Satchel something?
I don't know, but it's funny because I just did a Q&A in Phoenix for the movie. I went by myself, and that was one of the questions someone asked me if I could remember all the members of Grand Funk Railroad, and I choked. I said Mark Farner, and then
now you can add Don Brewer, but find out who the other guy is.
Yeah, I took a stab, and I think I said someone from Mountain. I said, I don't know, Felix Pappalardi.
That's Mountain. That's the bass player Mountain and the producer of Cream.
Yeah.
He was killed by his jealous girlfriend.
Esteemed bass player. He was killed
by his girlfriend.
Wow. Or his wife. Okay. I have a lot in common with him. I had a crazy girlfriend too.
Mark Farner was on this podcast, and I want to get your take on something he said. He said the creation of Closer to Home was a moment of divine intervention. What do you think?
Well, Mark Farner would say that because isn't he like a hardcore Jesus freak now?
He is.
I mean,
yes.
I mean freak in the most positive way too. We just come from the 70s. Jesus freak. Yeah, but I imagine all creation, all musical creation is a divine, inspiration on some level.
Yeah,
we're inspired a lot by divine. There's a lot of like female troubleisms in our music.
So when you say divine inspiration, you literally mean the actor divine.
That's what Mark Farner must have met, the actor divine.
I don't think
because I see a lot of connections between the two.
You see a lot of what?
I see a connection between divine, the actor, the actress, actor, and Mark Farner.
Okay. All right. I don't think that Mark was talking about female trouble inspiration, but that's fun. We should.
That's the first thing that came to mind because I thought, he meant divine inspiration.
No, because then you brought up the you said Jesus freak, but whatever. It's all good.
Divine. 3 days before Divine mysteriously passed away, I interviewed Divine. You're going to make me go back and now find that air check of that interview. It might have been the last interview, honestly.
Wow,
amazing. With Divine or Glenn, or I don't know how they
Divine, I think, yeah.
Divine,
yeah.
And so it was mysterious. I don't really know much about Divine's passing. But they were fine when you talked to Divine.
Everything seemed just hunky dory.
Oh my God. It's like sudden death syndrome.
Yeah, this is so easy to go, and it's so beautiful to go down rabbit holes with you guys. Which, by the way, is the way the documentary is. It's one rabbit hole after another, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think he controlled it. Like that was where you have to hand it to Andrew. He really helped to, kind of tie it all together to make sense because there are so many rabbit holes we can go down with Red Cross.
It's like an ADHD nightmare, and that's one of the things I've said several times now in interviews that, Andrew he could clean my junk drawer any day. Because he's really good at making organized sense out of total chaos.
You guys had a lot going on since the moment you started. You were 15 and 11 respectively. Is that right when you guys started out?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And did you have any idea whether this band would exist for a week, 2 weeks when you started? I mean, what did you think was going to happen?
At 11, I couldn't imagine 50. I had no idea what that was. So I didn't think about the band. I don't think I could even imagine what I would be like at 57, much less the band,
I think at that age is like the one time in your life you can actually live in the moment. Because once you get older, you're just always tripping on the future or freaking out about the past.
That's true, because there's not much past to trip out on, and then the future you don't know anything about it, so you kind of just, and then
You're
time moves
really in the really
slowly.
in the moment. Yeah.
There's so many characters that are in the documentary and part of your life and part of the band. Just drummers alone, is it 9 drummers that came through Red Cross?
I
Well,
don't.
we actually only count drummers who are on records.
That's not
The other
fair.
ones don't exist. What?
That's that's not fair.
No,
You
well,
do
think
not.
about it. Think about it.
Well, pretty much all of them are on records. Even
There,
Glenn. I'm sorry, but Glenn Holland's on records.
what is Glenn Holland on?
He's on the Desperate Teenage Love Doll soundtrack.
Right.
The the cover of Purple Haze, and that's on that soundtrack. And I think there's a couple yeah, I think a couple of the songs from the Desperate Teenage Love Doll soundtrack. I think he's on I Want to Be a Cholo Chick, that song. Do you remember that song?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So Glenn Holland. Yeah, but I mean, so that's
You're
basically it.
still trying to whatever you can to exclude him somehow.
No,
And
that's not true. I have
I
nothing
just
against it. But
screwed that one. I'm sorry. Sorry for you. Look at that. So moted.
If there were to be a biopic done on you guys, who would play you?
uh,
Well,
yeah,
I would
Steve, who would you like
Timothy
to play with?
Chalamet. If he was good enough for Dylan, he's good enough for me.
But he's too short to play it.
Who cares? I don't care. Well, no, he Timothy Chalamet could play David Cassidy in our story. So when
Yeah.
we go to make so we had to get some tall guys. And then when we go and then in the part where they have the Spirit of 76 section, it'll be perfect because he's tiny like David Cassidy.
Tony Tennille can play me, and maybe the captain will play you. Oh, the captain is
Although we both
fantastic.
have the captain's mustache now. And the captain's probably not with us anymore.
No,
Daryl
he
Dra-
did. He passed a year or two ago.
Yeah. I think we could have played Daryl Dragon. Jeff and I could share the role of Daryl Dragon in the Tony Captain and Tennille movie.
Is Dennis Dragon still alive?
Is that the brother from the Surf Punks?
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't kept tabs on.
Well, there was a Surf Punks were kind of influential on. We were going to do Too Big for Her Top on Teen Babes from Monsanto album, but we had to we tossed it the last second.
It's funny. I don't remember that
Yeah.
that discussion, but okay. That's a Surf Punks deep cut.
Is Monsanto, do you think your true classic of all? Is that the one?
The one where we didn't write any of the songs, so that's
To
definitely
some, but I mean, to some people it is their classic. But no, I mean, for us it was just a fun kind of exercise.
Well, I like what Jeff says in the documentary. He says that's when we came out as rock stars.
It is. It's when we just fully just blew it out there, and and it was an exercise. And we were so snobby at the time. We felt that the scene we were in needed a rock and roll education. So we were playing songs that were obscure to the kids that were our peers at the time. Now it's, everyone knows Kiss and the Stooges and the Shangri-Las, but the hardcore kids of 1982 had no idea who these groups were.
I think you would say it's pedantic.
Pedantic.
Pedantic. I think that word applies. It's like, we were schooling them.
We were schooling them, but I mean, now I have a much more humble, connection to that record than I did then.
But it is one of the records that Andrew Reich cites quite a bit as his entrance point into Red Cross.
Now, you guys, I feel like have always gotten along, except for one thing, maybe the additional D in Red Cross. Is that still something that's come between you two knuckleheads?
Yeah. Well, we did sing a chant on the new record where we're trying. I've been trying to like just cement it, somehow get it more into people's consciousness, because every time I see our names spelled incorrectly, which there's several opportunities, there's several different ways to do it, I always feel like it's a little bit of a reminder of like, you're not famous.
Well, and I also think about, I always think
Not,
about
you
the,
know.
and every time I see it, I'm not angry for myself. I'm sad for Steve.
Oh, well, that's so
Because I know it's torturing him. But you know what's weird about it is it's, you know, even today, like the headline of an article will be spelled wrong, but it'll be spelled correctly throughout the body of the article, or vice
or
versa.
vice versa.
That happens all the time. So people are just should start, you know.
The one I find the most interesting is REDDCROSS.
Which
That
is
one,
almost never happens.
it happens though. It does happen.
Do you
But
think though it happens? People are just messing with you.
no. Well, I just think I mean, maybe, yeah, maybe some, but I know that I know how I am about names and I never want to get them wrong. So I just assume that people are making a mistake and I'm always having to let them off the hook. Like, I mean, I don't really care. Of course, I'd be like, oh no, of course. I mean, my mom calls me Jeff. I don't, it's all fine. But but it is always one of that moment. It is always a moment where, like, if say it has something to do with like promoting the band, I have to correct people, and I hate having to correct people. That's a drag, and you know, whatever, it's fine. But what the point I did want to make was that on our new album, we have a song called "Good Times Propaganda Band." And it's sort of buried in the mix, but we do a chant at the end of the song where we say, yes, 2 Ds and a K. Hey, yes, 2 Ds and a K. Hey. So we're
trying to train our audience.
If nothing else, that is our motivation for continuing to do this, to get people to see how many people we can get to spell our name correctly before we die.
And it could have been worse. We could have easily spelled it with a Q.
There you go.
2 Ds and a Q.
I know what you would have said until you would have said, it's cool. It's like Stacy Q.
Was it influenced by Red Fox? Without a doubt.
Now, you know, now the word red, I see it a lot used in the hip hop world. Like there's
it's very African American.
It's like REDD. It's really come into its own in the past, you know, like 15 years or so.
Probably inspired by Red Fox also, because I mean, like, is Red a common name? Is it a common proper name? And adding the second D, I guess, kind of takes it out of a nickname and into a proper name.
Would you ever consider a punk version of the Sanford and Son theme?
I feel
the
like
Sanford and Son theme is pretty punk to begin with.
Dum 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 dum. What is that? It's got like, what is it? Juice harp or wow?
Feel like it is.
Yeah.
And
clavinet.
No, but there's got that It's got that one drone instrument in the intro. It's cool.
Pick it apart later.
It's a classic. I don't know who the composer is on that, but
we're going to have to check on that.
It sounds like Quincy Jones, but I don't think Quincy Jones did.
Oh, you know what I think it is? I think it is.
Really?
I think I recently hang on. Yeah,
I know he didn't do too many comedy.
Yeah,
that's amazing. It was Quincy. Wow.
It is.
He just passed away recently.
Yeah.
I wonder how he felt about that in his last years, about that part of his body of work.
I'm sure he was very proud of it. It was such a I mean, that was such a great piece of American television. You know, it's a really good mainstream moment, I think. At least from my household's perspective. And my dad loved Red Fox. My dad's sort of personality in many ways, I would say, is informed by both the Red Fox character from Sanford and Son and also the I'm forgetting the actor's name, but from the Jeffersons, George Jefferson.
Yeah.
My dad walks like George Jefferson. Our dad walks like George Jefferson, I think.
And then Red Fox was known before that show for those infamous party records, those nasty records. Comedy.
Yeah. Right. On Laugh Records, was it Laugh Records? A lot of those ones.
I believe so, yeah.
Early Richard Pryor was on that same label. And yeah, early
And
dirty comic.
LaWanda Page.
LaWanda Page. Well, LaWanda Page was part of the Rudy Ray Moore scene.
Well, that's
But I
also
don't
a
know.
comedy.
Is it on Joke Records though, or whatever, Laugh Records? I see the logo in my head. I don't remember. It's been a while.
I can too, actually. They were filthy as all get out, though, that's for sure. They really were.
We'll be right back with more of the Taking a Walk podcast.
But you guys, it's evident in the documentary that you guys are really historians of pop culture. You were fixated on the Brady Bunch. You were certainly fixated on the Partridge Family. You got to live out your dream and appear with David Cassidy. How did you become such historians of our time?
Well, I mean, we were brainwashed by our time. Maybe we came up in the 70s when, kids came up from school and turned on the TV and didn't turn it off until, bedtime. I mean, we would go out and play and ride skateboards and stuff like that. But yeah, we were, raised by television. Our parents never viewed what we watched, right, to make sure it was appropriate for us. I mean, not with television, they didn't. I mean, when I had my own child, I was very careful to kind of vet everything she consumed. But in the 70s, it was kind of like the programmers for the networks. They were the ones raising the children, I guess.
And there was only 3 networks then, too.
Right.
Imagine that, right? Think about that.
And the Brady
yeah.
Bunch was always kind of an embarrassment, I have to say. We were Partridge Family people. And it's not even like Beatles or Stones. It's more like Beatles or the Herman's Hermits.
I knew
Like
you the Hermits Hermits.
the Brady Bunch were more. The Brady Bunch became more of an influence when we got into LSD later.
Can you tell us the story how your lives intersected with David Bowie?
Well, I mean, I can't. I mean, that's more of like a discovery from the documentary because I think it was more like a hazy memory when we were reminded that David Bowie had been sighted at the Hong Kong Cafe the same night that we played our first nightclub show. But I mean, David Bowie had a huge impact on the two of us growing up because we borrowed our uncle's copy of Ziggy Stardust on 8-track tape, Christmas of 1972, and we never gave it back to him. And that changed us in a lot of ways. But by the time 1979 rolled around and we intersected, I guess we shared oxygen in the same building that night, but neither of us were particularly plugged into David Bowie's music at that point, only because we had lost interest around the time of Young Americans. And when he went soul, we just were looking for a harder edged sound. And we felt a little bit like we were in that camp where we felt somewhat betrayed by his musical pivot. And it was really the punk scene for me when I was surprised. I think I was probably surprised that everybody was freaking out about Bowie because I assumed everybody had tossed him away too because he wasn't making, heavy guitar music anymore. But that's not the case. Like the punk rockers that we admired, that we were around at that time, were all like leftovers from the glitter scene. They were all kind of like weirdo art students and people like that. And they were like Bowie obsessives. Like there was no way they were ever gonna like he was ever gonna lose those people. So I think, it was sort of eye-opening. And I don't know about that night specific. I just know the crew that I hung out with were such Bowie fanatics that I reconsidered Bowie after that time. And I realized, oh, I had missed Low and I had missed Heroes. And this was actually at the time that he was about to make, our Lodger was about to come out. So that's when I got back on his train, was around the time that he came to our show.
I love that part of the story, the way that unfolded. So as you watch the documentary, are there things that you sort of go, wow, I completely forgot about that.
Well, the Bowie thing I forgot about
Me
totally.
too, completely.
And it was like thanks to people like our friend Ella Black and other people that were a little bit older than us that were there and that remembered it. She had journaled about it and it was like, oh my God, right. Wow, that's wild. But like that's what that scene was so exciting to us that I mean, because we were rubbing elbows with our heroes that we held in the same esteem as the classic rock heroes that we had had 5, 10 years earlier. Like for me, I mean, Darby Crash was just as important as Mick Jagger or more so. Like when Darby Crash died, it was the same week as John Lennon's death or the day before or after, day before. And I at that particular time, I was more shaken by the death of Darby Crash than I was the death of John Lennon. And these were people that we were like, playing shows with. So it was a very thrilling moment for us to be interacting with our heroes and so yeah, so the fact that Bowie was there that night, we were probably also freaking out that Belinda Carlisle from the the yet not really known Go-Go's were there, or whoever, or Pat Bagg might have been there, and that would have been a really big deal to us.
There's another character that I wanted to ask you about, Tracy Lee.
Tracy Lee. Yes.
Talk about the mystery of Tracy Lee.
Well, when we first started going to shows in Hollywood, the scene was older than us. We were the kids. And Tracy was another kid that we met. She was the other person that was exactly my age. Like we were kind of like 15 when we started going to shows. And, and so when we were trying to figure out what the new angle for Red Cross should be, like when we were around the time before Born Innocent, we were putting the band back together after Steven's hiatus. When he returned, it was like put the band back together, and I'm like, oh, I got a great idea. Tracy Lee, she played guitar with a group called Castration Squad, who were an all-girl death rock group, or one of the very first goth bands of all time. And we were old friends with her, and I figured having her in the band would be like our Brian Jones. She would be the fashion center of our group, which she
on
was
rhythm guitar.
On rhythm guitar. But yeah, she was like us, and we were all. But she actually lived in Hollywood. Tracy, we were separated from Hollywood by living in the suburbs, so we didn't get to go there until years later. She walked to the Whiskey A Go-Go and saw the original Runaways play when she was like 13.
Yeah,
because she could.
Because she grew up in Hollywood, and it's funny. Like this kind of relates to what I was talking about, being thrilled by local celebrities more so than a lot of other people, bigger artists or whatever. Like many years later, I was on tour with my hardcore band Off, and a really close friend of mine, Josh Klinghoffer, had just joined the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they were playing a stadium down the road. This was in England. And so Josh invited me to the show. And like I knew Flea and Anthony way back, but just a little bit. Like I wouldn't expect them to necessarily know my name. And they were excited that I was coming to the show because they wanted to talk about Tracy Marshak. That's her real last name. And they had gone to school with her at Fairfax High. They had grown up in Hollywood too. And this is like in 2010 or something. And they're like, so wait, you know Tracy Marshak? And I was like, yeah. And
everyone was in awe of her.
They were in awe of her. She was the cool punk rock girl at Fairfax High. And they were maybe a year younger than her or the same age, but they were intimidated by her because she had she just always had this cool mystique about her. I mean, I'm sure at Fairfax at the time, she probably was a bit of a loner or not necessarily like a popular soc or whatever. But for weirdos like Flea and Anthony, they would have been like, oogling over her and obsessive about her, and that she was unapproachable on some level. And they still talked about her on that level, which is so funny because of, who they are now and what they've lived.
So tell us what it's like now creating new music, and what has changed in your guys' style and collaboration practices.
Well, a style is something that just comes and goes. It's just something that's a natural part of it. I think it's kind of filtered through whatever it is. Like for me, I'm speaking for myself, whatever I'm listening to is kind of affects whatever style. But the process is, since we've been doing this for so long, there's no set way. I mean, it's like we both write separately, we both finish songs separately, we both write parts separately, we both get together and write together. So there's just, so many ways to do it. There isn't a set way. And I think that's probably why we can still come up with good stuff, because we're not stuck in a rut of how to create or write music.
That's true. I guess we've never really landed on a formula.
No.
And so it's always, I don't know. I mean, this last time we wrote, it did feel different. It felt a little different, felt like we were getting some uncharted territory. And, I mean, I don't know, it's cool. It's cool to check back in and see like where we are as individuals and where we are as a partnership. And this last time was really fruitful. And it seemed like maybe I would also think the documentary, at least for me, the documentary had it offered some inspiration as well.
It's obvious watching you two in the documentary, and now how much you enjoy being together with each other. That's not acting, is it?
No, we're best friends, but we can also really get on each other's nerves on a deep level. But that's all like normal, It's like we recover really quickly when there's disagreements. They may seem like we might have a disagreement, even like a creative one that just seems like, oh, fuck him, blah blah blah. But then we get over it very fast, So I think that's being brothers, and the fact that there's just the two of us, and we grew up in very humble. Yeah, we grew up in the same bedroom, very close.
Also, our parents, as much as they've done some terrible modeling of how to deal with stress and anxiety, I think they've also been really good models in the terms of they're partners. They've been doing their own small business since the 80s. Maybe we started Red Cross before they started OmniWell.
Oh yeah, we did. They started in like 83 or something, or I don't know.
Okay, so they started their own small business in the early 80s, but they've been partners, so to speak, for since before Jeff was born. But and they still work together. They still work together. They're in their 80s, and our dad is like 86 now, maybe, and they still have their small welding company, precision welding, Omni Welding. If you need precision welding done in the South Bay region of LA, look them up on
We're kind of hoping they'll retire soon, but they don't really want to.
No, they can't. No, they worked through COVID and they're in great shape. And I think that's been a really positive thing for them. And because they worked through COVID, because they often would do government contracts. So much to our chagrin, we were like, I wanted to go do their shopping for them. And they're like, no, leave me alone. No, we're working. But whatever. But point is that they've I mean, I'd like to think that Jeff and I have evolved a little better. I mean, obviously we're brothers is a different dynamic, but we're not quite as bickering as they are. They are like world-class bickerers, and it's really dysfunctional. But
they recover quickly, though. So that's the kind of thing I think we may have learned, the quick recovery.
Yeah, right. When you talk about recover quickly, maybe that's a skill. We've learned to push it to our toes, like our
yeah. So who knows? But everyone gets along for, I'd say, 89% of the time.
Okay. Jeffrey,
these days they do. We do.
Jeffrey, what does Stephen do to make you better? And Stephen, what does Jeffrey do to make you better?
Well, Stephen's very thorough, very, very analytical. And, and I think sometimes I'm very flighty and I just go with my first response, in a creative situation. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it is good to take a beat. So, Stephen has insisted that I take a beat before on certain things creatively. And that's good. That's good, because otherwise I would just be, flying off the handle, doing everything, on an impulsive level musically. But that's one thing I can think of, because anyone who knows Steve, everybody know he's the most analytical person. He's very, very intense that way, which is great. But that's that's also where we hit like little, butt heads sometimes.
Well, I mean, and I guess the flip side is that I've become more, at least with my writing, I like my first ideas better now than I used to. So maybe that's Jeff's influence on me.
Well, guys, is there anything I've missed that you want to say or talk about?
Oh, we don't want, well, the movie, the album, the movie, and the Red Cross self-titled double album, and our book, Now You're One of Us, they all fit together. So if anyone reads the book, sees the movie, buys the record or whatever, and they need more, there is more.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say is you can go to Red Cross Film, and that's REDDKROSS film.com to find out if there's a screening anywhere in your area. Because the film is screening now. It's, sort of a short, limited theatrical run. And then it'll eventually go into, another formats like DVDs. And then I think they're going to figure out some kind of hosting situation to stream it, which I don't know that much about, but there is distribution for that. But I would say that if you know nothing about us and you're just kind of intrigued hearing our conversation, that the documentary is actually, from what I can tell, it seems to be engaging to people that know nothing about our music. And
it's really fun to watch with an audience, because it's
right.
funny, but it gets heavy, and it's musical.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you might not even be a big music fan, but if you're a human being, you might like the human elements of our story. And so because it's a good entrance point into our world. And then I would say if you watch the movie and then you're intrigued to know more, then I would direct you towards our newest album, because we've been together for so long that our catalog is pretty disparate, so to speak. It's random. Like there's records from when we were 13, and there's records from when we were 23 and 33, and so we changed a lot in those times. But the new album is a double album, so it's got a long track listing in it. It's a good cross section of everything that we're capable of, and we just happened to land in, as time would have it, or fate or luck or whatever, we intersected at an inspired moment with the opportunity to make a record. So I think it's a great companion for the movie and just learning about who we are. I think it's a good entrance. And then when that's done, if you're not like completely nauseated by having too much Red Cross in your world, then check out the book, because the book goes a deep dive into much more tweakier things than we got into today. But that's the order of events I suggest. That's the analytical Steve that Jeff just called me out on.
The documentary Born Innocent is fabulous. It is a saunter through music history without a question. And Jeffrey and Stephen McDonald, I'm so glad that we took this little walk down memory lane. Thank you for being on.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Taking a Walk podcast. Share this and other episodes with your friends and follow us so you never miss an episode. Taking a Walk is available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.